Hi everyone, and welcome to Existential Physics with Ogar Plinkelton. I'm Ogar Plinkelton. In this video, we're going to be exploring the lost art of producing fanzines with a spirit duplicator. Spirit duplication was invented in the early 1920s, and as with most new printing processes, the first people to utilize them are people who usually propagate religious zealotry, pornography, and science fiction. And spirit duplication was no different. Here's an example of a spirit duplicated fanzine from 1942, I believe, called Christ. Title kind of says it all. Here's one from 1953. Kind of, if you just look at that picture, kind of says it all. So anyway, that was religion and pornography, but I'm focusing on the ones that were produced for proliferating science fiction. This one was actually produced in around 1960 by a 17-year-old. And in the 1950s, this one was produced by a gentleman named Bob Peatrowsky, who actually produced a number of well-known fanzines, and he was a real master of using the Spirit Duplicator. All right, so with the help of my nephew, Ogar Plinkelton, who you've met many episodes ago, he and I are going to be beginning our own fanzine. And it's going to be called ANALOGOUS. I'm going to demonstrate the printing of a few pages of that and explain the spirit duplication process. Right over here is my spirit duplicator. Spirit duplication is a fairly simple process. This is a Rex rotary manual spirit duplicator that I own. This was manufactured in 1970, I believe. And this is what I'm going to be using to produce or reproduce our fanzine. So the process is fairly simple. You have what is known as a master. You type or draw on the front of this. And inside, this is just a spacing sheet. There is an inked sheet. When you draw or type on this, the ink is transferred to the back of this, which I'll demonstrate. But so this is then the master. When you're done with it, you place it into the spirit duplicator. It goes on a drum. The drum spins this around, and it gets pressed against the piece that you're going to be printing on. The piece of paper. The piece of paper, before it meets this master, gets wetted with spirit duplication fluid, or spirit duplicator fluid. And this comes in a can like this. This is my own special Ogar spirit duplicating fluid. It's a very special ingredients in this. But it is similar to what was always used, and you'll notice it's really flammable and actually somewhat carcinogenic, but I don't breathe that much of it. So there's a reservoir for it, goes in here. The blank paper in which you're going to be printing on is drawn into the machine. It gets soaked with the fluid via a wick. Then it's pressed against the master, which would have ink on here, which I'll show you later. And when the wetted paper that you're printing on meets this ink, the ink is then pressed onto that paper. It exits the machine, it dries, and you have your copy. I'm going to create the master for the first page of my new fanzine, which I'm calling ANALOGOUS. And this is a layout I created on my computer just to get the feel of what I want to do. And now I need to put all of this onto a master. You'll notice there's two different colors here, this bluish, green, and red. You can get masters with the color ink, and so the title will be done in this. Now I need to draw this by hand on the master. I did this on the computer just to get an idea of the layout, and then I will type this text that you see. Now the color of that text, the standard master is this color, this purple. And for those of you who are old enough to remember, if you went to school in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, a lot of the handouts you got in school and quizzes and tests were produced on a Spirit Duplicator with this color ink. And if you remember, how pleasant it was to get these as handouts because of the wonderful smell of the drying Spirit duplicating fluid. And if you're anything like me, when you got them, you used to smell them. And they just had a wonderful sensual feeling to them. Unfortunately, what you were smelling was a carcinogen. And so when the environmental laws took place in the early 70s in the United States, they thought it was not a good idea to have a highly flammable carcinogenic fluid just around in schools and churches and other civic organizations. Probably that was a good thing. All right, so I am going to type this text onto this master. I'm taking out the spacer sheet. And all right, I've typed the text of my first page onto the master, and you can see I typed it without the ribbon because I wanted it to make a nice impression on the master. Okay, now I want to add the title in color, so I have to get the other masters, the greenish blue and the red, and then draw it onto my master by hand. I finished typing the text as you saw, and now it's on the back of the master, and that's the purple ink, and I'm going to start the title, and I want to put on this blue sine wave, so I have to switch the purple master out for the blue one, or bluish green one. And I locate this back on here. So, and I'm going to tape it down. Now, I've already gone ahead and made a little template for this, and so I will put that on there like such, and I'm just going to trace that in. Okay, that's done, and let me show you what that looks like. So it's transferred that blue ink to there. And now I want to do the red analogous. So I need to switch the blue out. For the red, which I have over here. And this is red ink. And for these letters, I'm going to use a template. And it looks like I'm going to use, I think I'll use this one. Actually, I think I'll go with the larger one. So that will be in red. It doesn't look red right now, but when it prints, it'll be red. And then lastly, I'm going to go back to the blue and do volume 1, number 1. All right, the master for the first page is done. And that's what it looks like. And I'm going to take it over to the Spirit duplicating machine and I'll run some copies. All right, here is the Spirit duplicator machine once again. It is a Rex Rotary R5 manual machine from 1969. I think I said 1970 earlier. Here is the can of Ogar Spirit duplicator fluid. And as I had also said earlier, this is extremely flammable and ultimately turns out to be a carcinogen. So I've already poured some of the fluid into a flask right here. And now I'm going to pour the fluid into the reservoir of the Spirit duplicator. So just removing the lid, and I'll pour this in very, very carefully. And maybe fill it up about halfway. Again, you can see that this is probably not something that you would want to do in schools or churches and, as I said, other civic organizations, because it is highly potentially fire-causing and carcinogenic. Okay, put the lid back on, and this is a special lid, and you'll see that every time you push up on that little extender there, some of the fluid comes out. And that's what's going to wet the eventual copy. And how the fluid gets into the wick is, this is the wick right here. And that's the wick, and the paper coming in gets wetted with it. The fluid drops into the trough, goes through those holes, and down to the wick. And put that back in. Replace the reservoir, and once that's back in, ready to load the master and make copies. And here is the master, and there is a little bar on the drum that that raises up. You put the top of the master into it, and then push the lever down, and it pinches it in place. And then you just turn the lever, and it rolls it right around on the drum, and I'll crease it right at the that bar to make it hold a little bit better. And now we're ready to make copies. So here we go. In one end, feed the paper. And out the other end with a printed copy. And here's what the finished copy looks like. You see we now have that blue and the red and the purple. And what I usually do is I take them as they come out, hang them on a clothesline, and let them dry. I hope you enjoyed this video about spirit duplication. I put a link to a PDF file of a fanzine that was produced by Bob Peatrowsky in the 1950s. The name of his fanzine was MOTE. That was one of a few that he actually produced. And I think there were 9 editions of this one called MOTE. Anyway, there's a link of it in the description to a PDF file so you can actually view what these fanzines looked like. Also, I'm announcing the publication of a short edition that I just wrote, and what makes this unique is that it was published using a Spirit Duplicator. This book is available on Amazon, and if you search Ogar Plinkelton, you'll be able to find it, and if you'd like, purchase a copy. I think you'll enjoy it. It's somewhat autobiographical, and there's some fiction in it as well. That's it for this edition. The next video I'm going to do is going to explore the wave behavior of light as it passes through a single small slit. And we'll be observing the interference patterns that are produced when light passes through a single slit. So until then, stay safe.